Welcome.
Welcome back. Season 3, episode 2. I cannot believe they've let us continue this long. I can't believe it.
I know, isn't it? It's crazy to even think that. But here we are. It is a beautiful day in the neighborhood. I hope it is where you are listening to us today. Thanks for joining us. Looking forward to this episode for sure.
It's absolutely a beautiful day here too. Great to be back in the podcast studio with you here, Shelli Hawkins. Great to see you again. I'm sure our listeners love to hear and see you. We've got a really cool episode today.
Very exciting.
Yeah, we're going to be here talking all about EVs. What's an EV, Shelli?
Electric vehicle.
Yes, good answer.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're going to be talking all about tips, tricks, and just the fundamentals of electric vehicle towing, recovery, basics. We've got a very cool special guest that we're going to be bringing on in just a minute or two.
Pretty excited to have him, for sure.
Some cool stats about EVs. Did you know that they are growing in popularity? Are you aware of that?
Absolutely. Yes, I am. I see them wherever I go, no matter the manufacturer, seeing them more and more and more.
They currently hold about 1% of the total vehicle market. That equates to about 2.4 million electric vehicles on the road today. That's a huge number, if you think about that.
Sure.
And apparently 7% of adults in the U.S. have said that they currently have an electric vehicle, and 39% said that they were very or somewhat likely to seriously consider buying an electric vehicle in the near future. Which is really cool. We'll talk about
Did you also know, Dennis, that it is projected by 2040 that 58% of global passenger vehicle sales will come from electric vehicles? Now, before you sit there and say, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe that," I have a good friend named Renee. His dad told him in the 80s, "Son, the vast majority of vehicles in 20 years will be front-wheel drive," and it was just mind-blowing to even think about that. And here we are with kind of the same scenario with the electric vehicle.
Right. Yeah. The world is changing. We're moving away from fossil fuels, or at least concentrating fossil fuels in one, pocket, and being able to convert that to electricity. And it's more energy efficient. It's better for the planet, and maybe there will be a planet left here for the next couple of generations. So that's kind of cool.
So the task at hand is for our amazing towing industry to understand all of the ins and outs of electric vehicles, because today they're moving them, they're recovering them, they're towing them, and they come with challenges, Dennis.
Well, like that transition to front-wheel drive, towing procedures had to evolve and adapt to meet the new vehicle types. When more and more four-wheel and all-wheel vehicles hit the road, the towing industry had to adapt and update their procedures, update their how we do things. Unibody frames. That was a good one. Remember those days?
Yes, I do.
It's a unibody, so it needs special equipment. So come talk to us at a tow show about some of those stories.
Yes, Dennis has lots of stories.
Speaking of tow shows, by the time this airs, we will be probably gearing up to head to our next run of tow shows. We'll talk a little bit more at the end of the show, but if you'd like to come and see us, we will be, let's check the dates real quick. I got them all listed here.
Yes, all of them.
June 3rd and 4th, we will be at the ESTRA, a Empire State Towing and Recovery Association. That is the New York State Towing Association. We will be, again, June 3rd and 4th. That is Lake George, New York. We'll be up there having a great time. Come catch Shelli and I. We'll be walking
You guys
around.
want to hear the true Dennis, New York, come out?
What are you talking about?
Come to ESTRA. What happened?
So forget about it.
What happened? Yes, it happens all the time.
The following weekend, June 10th into the 11th, we will be in Frankenmuth, Michigan at the Michigan Towing Association's picnic. That's going to be a great time. Shelli, you were in Frankenmuth recently, right?
I was just about a month ago, for sure.
Cool. Well, I'm going to look forward to you showing me around town, and we'll hear Shelli's Midwest accent come out, don't you know?
Yes. Absolutely.
And then the following week, June 17, 18, 19, or 16, 17, 18, apologies, 16, 17, 18, we will be right here in Fort Worth, Texas at the American Towman Tow Expo.
Oh, very much so. So we're excited for all those travels. It's gonna be a good time.
It's going to be a long, grueling month, but we are looking forward to seeing all you folks out there. So stop by the Honk booth. If you heard us on the podcast and that's how you know we're going to be one of these shows, feel free to let us know. I charge $5 for pictures. Shelli charges extra for autographs, but we will. No, I don't charge. I don't.
Have you ever had someone ask for your autograph, Dennis?
Not yet. I'm hoping someone does one of these shows, though.
I've had it once.
Once? Okay, well, next time I see you, I'm going to ask you. I'm going to harass you in the airport and ask you for your autograph while you're picking up your bags for baggage claim.
Sure. So we are excited to expand your knowledge on the best ways of how to handle electric vehicles. Our guest in the podcast today is Mr. Chris Young. He's going to provide us with tips for towing electric vehicles and handling them and everything.
Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you guys asking me to come on and talk about this.
We know that this is coming on. We need to be prepared for this, and we're excited to have you today to talk a little bit more about it.
Well, let's have a conversation.
Before we get started, Chris, Shelli and I know you fairly well. Shelli introduced us a couple of times at this point. I know we've shared a cocktail or two at a convention and had some great conversation. But for our listeners that don't know who you are, why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Chris Young. I own a consulting firm called Parkway Consulting. I do consulting, expert witness work, right education in the towing space. I got started running trucks in '93, so I've been in the towing space for almost 30 years. Started in the repossession space when I was in college. Spent about 10 years owning a repossession agency. I've been a licensed insurance agent since '91. My whole family's in insurance, and I'm the only one that didn't find my way into that disaster. So probably about 2010, I started writing towing and recovery risk, started insuring towing companies, did that for about 8 years. About 2011, I started writing education, instructing education, do some engineering and design consulting as of late, a lot of EV stuff there. And as of late, been doing a lot of expert witness work. So it's interesting because I see things in the towing space at a more global level than a lot of people do, because I've looked at it from a bunch of different angles.
Cool. So from what I understand, Chris, you are pretty much the foremost expert on towing and recovery of electric vehicles these days.
I don't know if I'm the foremost expert, but I'm one of them.
Well, I'm putting it out there. I'm saying you're the foremost expert, and we say it's true.
It is what it is.
Yep.
So for a little background, why don't you tell us what makes an electric vehicle different than our standard gasoline or diesel powered vehicles that are on the road today?
Fundamentally, other than the power source being a battery over gasoline or diesel, an electric motor over an internal combustion engine and transmission, they're really not that much different. In the handling of them, once you figure out how to get the vehicle in neutral and roll it and figure out where to attach to it to not create any damage, you really handle them the same as an ICE vehicle. I mean, there are some subtle nuances.
What is an ICE vehicle?
An internal combustion engine vehicle.
There you go, internal combustion engine. Continue.
For the folks that don't know, the biggest hurdle that we're going to encounter going forward is we're losing that mechanical park release that everyone's in love with. They've been going away over a number of years. We've been losing them in the German vehicles for probably 8 to 10 years. In the last couple of years, I've had discussions with one of the big German auto manufacturers, and we talked them into holding on to them until their ICE platforms go away. And then one of the American OEMs was trying to figure out something in the trucks, and we were able to kind of direct them and relocating them to reduce some engineering costs. The biggest hurdle folks are going to have is you're not going to get into neutral. It's, you're going to have to energize them and then go into the vehicle and shift it electronically.
And that's something we've really been, like you said, this is something we've dealt with long before EVs. Is we've had all these vehicles that do require additional power to shift into neutral. Even if you have if you have a dead battery or if you have an issue with the vehicle, simple override. It's usually just put power to the battery. In this case, it's a little bit different, or are we along the same path, or what are we really looking at?
Well, some of these platforms, the OEM doesn't even want you doing a 12-volt jump. So, Audi is a really good example. Audi has jump posts. You open the hood or the front cover, the front trunk, and there's jump posts there.
we
But
call it a frunk, right?
well, yeah,
That's the technical. I love that word. It's a great word.
Yeah. So you open it up and there's jump posts there, but when you start talking with engineers and getting into their owner's manual, they don't want you jumping that vehicle in the field. They want the vehicle brought in, and they want to charge that 12-volt side themselves. So for these vehicles that you can't get at a 12-volt battery, you're going to be forced to drag it on. You're going to have to make the connection and skate the vehicle on. So outside of those outliers, it's accessing either the battery or the jump post. Some vehicles you can go on a battery, like VW ID4, you can go directly on the battery. There's no jump post there. Other vehicles have jump posts. It's a matter of getting to the jump post of the battery, energizing the vehicle, and then going in and using whatever their shift to neutral mode is, or a tow mode. Some of these vehicles you have to go into the infotainment screen and select a tow mode. Others, you just put it in neutral and roll it on. And there's a bit of interesting stuff going on there, for lack of any better terms, in that some of these vehicles, park is nothing more than an application of the park brake, whereas some vehicles actually have a park pawl in the electric motor. So they'll have a park pawl in the electric motor, and they'll have an electronic park brake. And the OEMs don't want you back there on the hub assemblies taking the actuator off and going around that. Right. I mean, honestly, we don't want people doing it. We don't want people back there goofing around and then rolling a car over themselves.
So obviously there's a few different types of instructions here. There's a few different sets of parameters for different types of vehicles. But so let's say I'm Joe Tower and I roll up on a disabled vehicle that I was dispatched to by XYZ company, and I'm here to pick up this vehicle. Where is my best resource to find out how to tow this vehicle properly?
I would go directly to the owner's manual. These EVs have phenomenal owner's manuals, and every one of these vehicles that I write material on, I read the owner's manual cover to cover, and some of these things are 600 to 800 pages. I mean, they're getting to be really, really big. They have excellent indexes. They have excellent glossaries in the front. It's relatively easy to find what you're looking for, but if you don't know how to handle the vehicle, go directly to the owner's manual, and you'd be surprised the wealth of information that's in there.
And I think that's true for any kind of vehicle these days. Is if it's something you haven't come across and it's a vehicle maybe you don't recognize, maybe it's a foreign car that is rare in the market that you're in, that's usually the best resource to go to. Most of these OEMs are at the point where they understand that they may have slightly different procedures than what you're used to, and they're happy to publish those guidelines right in that manual for you.
Yeah, the OEMs are becoming more realistic, and they're thinking that, hey, there may be an issue with this vehicle in the future, and we need to empower these operators on knowing how to handle these platforms.
So they're not out to just get towers and make it more complicated, right? They're not making it more complicated for towers and mechanics like we've been led to believe over the last 20 years or so, right?
No. I mean, it's just a matter of getting your hands on the owner's manual, and you'd be surprised how many of these owner's manuals can be found online. So, if you get a call on a platform that you've not had an experience with, it's an EV platform, you might be surprised that you'll probably find it online if you do a really quick Google search.
So you think that in these owner's manuals, it's going to tell them how to put it into neutral, how to load it, everything that we need to know? That's your best first choice?
They're going to tell you how to get it in neutral, and they're going to tell you what the preferred wrecker tow truck is. They're all going to say put them on a rollback. They're going to say don't use a sling, don't use a wheel lift. If you have to, if it's the last ditch effort is to use a wheel lift and dollies, then go that path. But you need to be cognizant of what these vehicles weigh, because these EVs are really heavy, and the electric pickup trucks are even heavier. I mean, the electric pickup trucks weigh more than what 3/4 ton and 1 ton the gas and diesel pickup trucks weigh. So, wow. Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yep.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm actually going to be in the market for a new vehicle myself within probably the next 6 to 8 months, and I've been really thinking about. As Shelli knows, Chris, I'm not sure if you know this. I moved out to rural Texas last year, so I've really been thinking about packaging out one of these F-150s or one of these Chevys,
I love
and
this.
but I want to do it up Texas style. I want to get the big old bull horns on the front and
Get a
really.
lightning. He's going to get a lightning. And go ahead, Dennis. What are you going to do with the
I
lightning?
want to put the big old bull horns on the front and on the roof, put the gun rack in the back window, and really just Texas it up and just have this electric Texas out Lightning 150 or even a Chevy, depending upon who's got the best deal when it comes time to actually go looking.
If you go the route of the Ford, I've been in that vehicle recently. You won't be disappointed with that thing. That's a phenomenal truck. They've done a really good job on that truck. And if you've owned a Ford in the past, then you get into that. You can make that conversion really quick because everything kind of looks the same outside. It's dimensionally the same. So it's I haven't been in the Silverado. I don't know how long before they have production models out that people can actually get their hands on, but the Ford I've been in, and the Ford is a phenomenal truck.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be a cool juxtaposition to put that in my driveway. Here's this modern eco-efficient F-150 that's here to save the environment, but also we're taking some bolts with us on this.
Just throw some solar on the roof, you'll be fine.
There we go.
We talked about loading it. We talked about getting it in neutral. What in your opinion, Chris, what are the challenges around tires when it comes to electric vehicles?
Are we talking about flats, or are we talking about navigating everything that's behind the tire?
Whatever the tower is going to have to come in contact with.
Okay, so as far as tires go, most of these EVs are going away from spare tires.
As are most vehicles these days.
Most vehicles, yes.
The trucks are still retaining spare tires. Some of the trucks' spare tires are optional, like in a Rivian. The spare tire is an option. So you might open the hatch. It may be there. It may not be there. The Ford, it's up underneath where it always has been. I expect Silverado to do the same thing. There's this level of expectation with a truck that you have a spare tire. But for vehicles that don't have spare tires, you're either going to have a spare tire program like Tesla does and have the option to get a spare tire out to a vehicle, or you're going to be towing it with a flat. Mm-hmm. So if you're towing it with a flat, let's start there. You're going to have to expect to have your ground clearance altered. So your approach angle, if you have a flat on the front, your approach angle is going to be different. So if you're not running a low profile deck with a really low, low degree angle, expect to ramp it so you don't have contact in the front bumper. Same thing with the departure angle. If you've got a flat on the back end, expect some contact there. If you're, if you're not going to contact, you're going to have to ramp it. So you have to be carrying some means to ramp it, some wood, race ramps, whatever. For vehicles that have a tire program or that have a spare tire, be mindful of where you're jacking these vehicles. This is something I was looking at on F-150 when I was there. And F-150 actually has arrows in the frame. They've got, a location on each corner, and they've got an arrow designating where to jack the vehicle. It used to be on that vehicle, it had a regular straight axle rear end. It's gone to an independent rear suspension. So you're no longer taking a floor jack and stabbing that vehicle and jacking it up. I mean, there is designated spots on these vehicles to jack. If you get too far in, you can very easily end up jacking on the battery and damaging the battery.
Ooh.
Yeah, yes. We've heard some horror stories about that kind of stuff lately. So that's definitely one to avoid there.
So it's take your time. Take your time with the tire changes. If you're changing a tire roadside, get up onto there and define where you're going to jack it. Once again, if you don't know where to jack it and it's not obvious, get the owner's manual out. They're really good about that.
Yeah, and I think with these new procedures, and it's like anything else that's kind of new to the industry, like all-wheel drive vehicles, when they started first popping up everywhere, we had to adapt a little bit. We had to change our procedures a little bit. We had to approach the vehicle a little bit differently. Chris, would you say that this is more complex than what towers are really dealing with, or how would you define that?
From a drive system perspective, the electric motors are more technical than what they're used to dealing with. I mean, we're not taking a, this isn't a deal where you're gonna have a vehicle on a bridge or in a tunnel, and you're gonna stab it from the front end with an auto load wrecker, shift it in neutral, and pull it down the bridge like you're dragging a 10-year-old Charger. You're not going to do that. The vehicle will not allow it. A lot of these vehicles, if you get them rolling over 1 or 2 miles an hour, they're going to put themselves in park, or they're going to set their park brake. They're not going to allow you to do it. So if you're in that situation, you're either going to be throwing it on dollies and getting it to the end of the bridge or the tunnel, or you're going to get it up on a carrier and get it out of harm's way. The vehicles are pretty intelligent. They understand when they're being rolled too fast, and that's a regen issue. They don't want to be throwing a bunch of energy up into the battery. It'll just default to park or set its park brake.
So yeah, like I said, I mean, I keep going back to this point with towers that I talk to, and there's some fear about this stuff. Is there any real justification to these fears of these vehicles, and that these vehicles pose a more inherent danger?
No. I mean, we went through this with hybrids. We went through the same thing with hybrids. People were thinking that you had to get in there and take down the high voltage circuit. It was really popular with the Priuses, and people. I mean, in the battery in a Prius is small, and people were a little fearful in handling them. And once they kind of figured it out and educated themselves, they get handled no different than any other vehicle. I mean, the Prius is a front wheel drive. You still don't want to tow it on a wrecker. You still want to, if you have to, put it on a set of dollies. Prefer you put it on a carrier. But this is no different than when we went into, like you were saying before, from full frame cars to unibodies, from 4-wheel drive systems to full-time all-wheel drive systems that if you hooked it from the front or hooked it from the rear and you tried to drag the front tires, the whole thing was locked up like those old V8 Grand Cherokees. It's just, this is another evolution we're going through, and everyone just needs to educate themselves. But fundamentally, once the vehicle's on the deck, it goes down the road the same as any other vehicle. It's just getting it there. It's a little bit different getting it there, but once you have it there and you have it strapped down, it goes down the road like any other vehicle.
So all we're doing is just learning a new series of procedures for a new, like you said, evolution. That's a great word. I like that, and I think we're going to use that a little bit more around here.
One other issue that people are getting hung up on is this out of range issue on the high voltage battery. So we talked about jump starts. There's this high voltage battery issue. High voltage battery out of range issues, usage rates on those is relatively low, because what you have to keep in mind is a lot of these people are, number one, they're pretty technical souls. They're usually charging these vehicles at home, and they're always watching their range because they know they don't have the luxury of going to the corner and filling up. So they are extremely mindful of what their range is. Now, do people run out of range? Yes, they do. Do you see it more in larger markets? Yes, you do. And, when you get that vehicle, some of those vehicles that when the high voltage battery goes down, it takes a low voltage side down with it, because a low voltage side is always trying to monitor what's going on. And you'll get there and the 12 volt side will be down too. And you're going to be reduced to dragging that vehicle on the deck. It's what you're going to go through.
And it's really no different from anything else these days that we're used to, where vehicles locked up, it's stuck in park. You got an electronic e-brake, which is something we've been running across more and more. Even the entry level vehicles now are coming with electronic parking brakes. So I think any good rollback operator worth their salt these days has a set of ramps and a set of skates to be able to mitigate these situations. So I don't see it being really more complex than what we're really dealing with. Like we keep saying, it's a new set of rules we just need to learn on how to adapt to these vehicles.
As far as dragging them, if you have a set of skates, great. If you don't, you need to have them on the truck. What's most important with the loading these vehicles is the connection point. You need to make the connection point where the manufacturer recommends. If it's a tow eyelet, I know a lot of these guys are scared of tow eyelets. And these guys say tow eyelets break. I've never seen one break. Never. Including every one I've seen zero break. I had a 528 wagon, a BMW, and I worked for a buddy of mine for like 2 years. And I towed that car in and out of work because I took a truck home. And I towed that car in and out of work twice a week. And every time I loaded it with the tow eyelet. So that car was loaded and unloaded about 100 times with the same tow eyelet. And it was done in neutral. I mean, granted, it wasn't dragged or anything.
Well, they're not designed for dragging. They're designed for loading and unloading. You're not really supposed to bear weight on them. You're not supposed to ratchet down your winch all the way. It's not a securement point. It is just for loading and unloading.
It's not a securement point is the key. So once you bring these vehicles on by the tow eyelet and you get them strapped down, you need to relieve the tension on that tow eyelet. I see a lot of these guys running down the road with 2 corners of the 8-point on. And you got the car, diving down in the front, and the winch is still holding the tow eyelet. That's where things go wrong. Yeah. That's sooner or later that mishandling of the vehicle, that misuse of the tow eyelet will likely break the tow eyelet, or it'll break the provision back in the bumper beam. In not all these vehicles you're having a tow eyelet. There's a lot of them that are telling you to connect the suspension, and if you're connecting to the suspension, get a nylon wraparound bridle. Don't be going in there with the long meat hooks and hooking on the suspension. Get a good nylon luxury bridle and be using that on an EV, not metal hooks. But whatever the means is.
Real quick, Chris, I'm going to stop you right there. It's 2022. Get rid of all the metal hooks on your truck. Like you almost don't need them anymore.
Yes, precisely. When you're loading the vehicle, it's wise to document everything you're doing with that vehicle. I've been reviewing some claims cases for some insurance companies recently, and I've had vehicles that have been handled, 1, 2, 4, 6 times in the past 6 months, and all of a sudden a frame rail is torn out that's been discovered, and nobody knows who did it. You start going back through and talking with towing companies like, do you have any pictures of when you towed the vehicle? And some of these towing companies are getting really, really adept at documenting everything they do with vehicles. And you need to be doing it with these electric vehicles. Document that you made the connection with the tow eyelet. I mean, it's as easy as when you're getting ready to load it. You can see the tow eyelets in the car. You're going to winch it on. Take a photograph. 8-point these vehicles. We're not running cars down on the winch anymore. I mean, it's a rollback with a winch is nothing more than a mobile frame machine. If you want to tear up a vehicle these days, run it down on the winch. And I see a lot of guys still doing it, running down the road with German. Got meat hooks on the front suspension, got one on the back, and they're running down the road with a Q8 hauling. And it's like, oh my God. I mean, it's because especially the German cars, they've got hydraulic bushings in them, and you can take and tweak those things and blow them out, and then they start leaking. So with the EVs, you absolutely need to be 8-point in these vehicles. And I'm not talking about choking them, going through the wheel, the strap, and choking them. I'm talking an 8-point kit on each corner. Get it up there, relieve your tension on your winch line, and go. But document everything you're doing with that vehicle. Document everything and how you handle it from beginning to end to drop off. Take pictures. I mean, if you have 50 pictures on a tow job in your whatever your if you're using Towbook or whatever your system is, it's better than zero. Because I can tell you, I've gone back and talked to towing companies, and they're like, hey, before this even starts, I'm going to send you my pictures because I don't need to have this conversation. They send me the pictures like, okay, we know that guy didn't damage the car. Let's go to the next one. And then you get to the last guy and you can't document it. It's like, I think this is probably the guy that did it.
Yeah, it's something we talk about quite often on this and our live show, which, by the way, this episode should be airing sometime, I think the week of May, around 16, 17. So if you're listening this week, if you're listening the week of the 16th, 17th, tune into our Facebook live show on the 25th, where we're going to have some friends from Zips and BA products, and maybe we will get invested a little bit more in the conversation around those 8-point tie-down straps and some of the other equipment out there. But that all being said, this really is. I love just going back to this term evolution, and I think it's really cool that we're evolving. But yeah, just having this equipment, and we talk about this documentation aspect of it all the time. It's something we do. We have a kind of cool product that we've been working on for a little while now, where we allow adjusters to start a claim right away. We have our tow ops capture photo and video from the scene and begin processing a claim right away. We've been able to reduce some cycle times for some of our insurance clients, but also we've used that data to protect our towers from fraudulent damage claims, things like that. That's always something great to have. You should absolutely be documenting everything you are towing these days, and have a software to manage that. Towbook's great for it. There's some other great ones out there that do it. Not promoting any particular brand here. I just Towbook's a great piece of equipment, but they have some great competitors that do similar work. Take your photos of the vehicle. Take a 30-second walk around video of the vehicle, of its condition, before you start engaging that vehicle. Document it. Cover your rear end.
Yes. Before, after it's loaded, and when it's off the bed. This is what the vehicle looked like in all conditions.
Yeah, and especially when you're dropping them at dealerships. I can't tell you how many times I've heard of cars getting hit in a dealership by another wrecker operator dropping the one next to it, and they're like, "Hey, the doors are caved in on this car," and the guy hits one car or the other, then he takes and moves the car that he hit your car with. And it's like, well, when I dropped it off, this is what it looked like. So I don't know what happened to it. So yeah, absolutely do a walk around. And if it's nighttime, get a flashlight out. I mean, do something to light it up. But if you do a slow walk around a car and you've got your camera on your phone set accordingly, you'd be surprised what you can pick up. And what's important is down low. You want to know what's on the bumpers, because that's usually where the claims come in. Is there's always this deal where they think you hit the bumper.
I want to throw this one question out there. Go ahead, Chris. What were you going to say?
One more thing while we're talking about running vehicles down on the winch. With the EVs, what you need to understand is not so much in the domestic trucks, because they're still a body on frame design, so they're a little more forgiving, but you still don't want to do it. If you're running these EVs down on the winch, the battery is an integral part of the bottom of that car. So you run a very high risk of damaging that battery. Mm-hmm. And those things are by no means.
Yeah, that sounds expensive.
Good point.
And if you take and you total a car, it behooves everybody to be extremely careful, not just with EVs, but with everything they're handling nowadays, because you can't get parts to anything. I've got a pickup truck parked that I'm waiting for a hub assembly on. I've been waiting for 8 weeks, and it's a hub there. I can't get it from Ford. So, I mean, it is crucial to everything everyone's doing on the street is to handle everything with kid gloves.
Fair enough. Quick question. We don't need to spend a whole lot of time on this. Where do you think we're at with these portable EV chargers? Are we in the Gen 1 phase? What do you think?
I see them being more of a concierge service.
Okay. That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. I see those, there are a lot of those things out there that are phenomenal. I like the ones that are battery over a generator because it offloads energy faster. None of them are really portable, but I honestly don't see a lot of towing companies investing in those.
Yeah. I mean, it's just going to be like any technology. It's going to get better over time. We're right in the early stages of it, but with more and more EVs out there, you're going to see a lot of more people becoming smarter about the technology on the portable chargers. So
where I see the portable charger thing going is when the light wreckers are either a hybrid or they're all electric, and you can offload out of the vehicle.
Okay.
You don't have to carry anything. So it'll be a vehicle-to-vehicle charging situation. That's where I see that going. I see the idea going into that space.
So that's actually a question I had that I was going to bring up here. How far away, or do you ever see a world where we're running electric wreckers?
If it's out there, and we're talking about mass adoption, it's a ways out. And I went to Work Truck Week in Indy about 2 months ago, and I was looking at a lot of these electric trucks and looking at how they're put together. If you're in LA and you're not driving a lot and you can get to a charger and you can charge a vehicle up pretty fast, I see it as I see it as viable. But with any other electric vehicle, my fear is we're going to be sacrificing payload for having an EV platform. I would rather see it go to like a diesel electric platform. I don't know if it'll ever go there, but these EVs are exceptionally heavy. And when you start talking about making a commercial truck an EV, you lose payload. So it's like, okay, I've got a Freightliner M2 and I can put 9,000 pounds on the deck before we start talking about the wheel lift. That may be down to 6,500 and that may be down to 4,500, depending upon how heavy they make the chassis. Because what you have to consider is that they need to figure out how they're going to run the pump. And is the pump going to be run electrically, or is it going to be, are all the cylinders going to turn into electric actuators? So there's a lot of conversations that need to be had there. When I was at Work Truck Week, I talked to a lot of chassis manufacturers, and they're all looking at it. They're all interested in it, but it's a hydraulic pump issue that they can't figure it out, because our demand is huge on the electric, on the hydraulic pump.
Sure. It is all coming down the line for sure. Thanks for that.
So if folks want to get some more additional training on how to just for their operators, they want to have some additional resources on where to go and where to like really learn on these new procedures and things that we're talking about. Any recommendations in that world? Honestly,
it's for right now. It's the tow shows. The tow shows are a really, really good source for education. The networks that handle OEM clients, they're all putting together training for, especially EV platforms right now. So any network that's handling an EV client, if you're working for them, ask them where their repository for resources is.
Great advice. The one phrase that Dennis said earlier that I keep thinking about, and I think that this is one of our number one takeaways from here, is that these jobs are not more complex. It's just a different set of procedures, because we're in the motion and we're in the habit of doing pretty much the same thing with the majority of our vehicles on our rollback. And all of a sudden we come to the electric vehicle and it's like, we're frozen. So just know that—
I thought you actually were frozen for a second.
It's not super complex. It's just a different set of procedures. And like Chris said, we need to self-educate.
It's just an evolution of the automobile. That's fundamentally all it is. We have to get through it.
Mm-hmm. I also loved your comment, Chris, about the documentation. That is incredibly crucial. These are a lot of times a higher end vehicle. And so, especially when you need to get the ramps out or whatever the case may be, take pictures, take videos before, during, while it's loaded, when you've offloaded at the dealership. Like you said, they could come out to you, just cover, what did you say? Cover your behind, Dennis?
Yeah, CYA. You can figure out that rest on your own. But 2 minutes of documentation could save you tens of thousands of dollars.
Absolutely. And another thing to keep in mind with these vehicles, I was talking about the weight of, what a electric tow truck would be. These sedans and the bigger vehicles are heavy. Once you go north of 6,000 pounds, if you're using a 550 or 5,500 truck, you need to know what your truck weighs. Because I had an epiphany about 6 months ago with a client, and I had an electric pickup truck on the back of a small carrier, and it was 1,400 pounds over on the rear axle. And what I discovered with these EVs is most of them are a 50-50 split. On those vehicles that are 50-50 splits, I don't care how far forward you put them, almost all of it's going on the rear axle. It's very, very hard to load the front axle. And when you take those small trucks and you put a side puller in between the cab and the bed, you push the bed back. So you're pushing the vehicle back and you're unloading the front axle more. If you're going after a vehicle that is probably north of 5,000 pounds in a small truck, you need to have a good idea of what you weigh. And this isn't a discussion about breaking trucks. This is a discussion about finding trouble, because trouble will find you. If you're running heavy in a truck and you get into trouble and you get weighed, it can turn into a big issue. So just use the right equipment. That this is going to be another evolution we're going to go through. Is our equipment going to get heavier? It's just that's what we're going to have to do. Right
equipment for the right job. It's what it all comes down to.
Absolutely,
for sure.
Chris, one last question. Companies like HONK, we're here, we're in this space. We try our best to pass along the correct information to make sure that our towers have the right resources when they're going after these cars. Any suggestions on what we can do to provide the right information when we're sending out this information to our towers?
Outside of having resources online available, having a repository of training information, they're going to have to take it upon themselves to get into the owner's guide or to educate themselves before they go out. And then whatever information you guys have that you can provide, find a way to link it to the dispatch.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Chris, thank you for dropping in. We really we appreciate you coming by and sharing your wealth of knowledge, and hopefully we'll be able to chat again soon. Otherwise, we will absolutely see you on the road in the coming months.
Yeah.
Lots of travel for all of us up and coming. Other than that, thank you for just sharing this wealth of knowledge with us and with our network.
Well, I appreciate you having me on and being able to spread some word here about this issue that we're all going through right now.
And like I said, if you want to see Shelli and I and the HONK team, we will be on the road. Lake George Estrato Show in New York, June 3rd and 4th. Michigan Tow Picnic, Frankenmuth, Michigan, June 11th. Tow Expo in Fort Worth, Texas, June 16, 17, 18. We will be out there. If you are not a HONK provider today, please head over to joinhonk.com, and check out our website. Sign up today. We can get you started taking tows as soon as today if you are interested. We are also working with Wreckmaster to get our partner network some promo codes to attend their EV and hybrid training class coming up. So if you could check out the wreckmaster.com website, you can find more information there. The secret code for a discount on that training class is going to be HONK EV1. That's HONK EV and then the number 1. HONK EV1 over at wreckmaster.com to get a discount on EV and hybrid training class. Stay tuned. Again, we will be airing our live show probably be next week if you're listening to this right now. We will be over on our Facebook and YouTube pages. You can check us out there. We will have Renee Jimenez over at BA Products and some friends from Zips Towing Equipment talking about supply chain issues. We'll also have our friends from Wreckmaster and some additional folks that may be involved in the EV and hybrid conversation going forward on our next live show following that. So check out our social media. Shelli, you want to say something here so I can take a breath?
Exciting things are coming. Dennis, you said it well. Thank you so much for the summary.
So keep an eye on our social media at HONK for Help on Facebook, at HONK for Help on Instagram. We will look for the hashtag HONK for Help as well. Head over to joinhonk.com and don't forget to get hooked.
That's right.
Get hooked.
Get hooked.
Get hooked. Get hooked.
Yes.
Thanks again for Chris Young for coming on board and hanging out with us and chatting today. And we'll see you out there.